After Marshall picked Kevin up from the hospital, he drove him to his apartment at Corwin Tower. On the way there, Marshall ordered his men to deliver all the herbal ingredients they'd obtained as a surprise for Kevin. When they got off the elevator and stepped into the living room, Kevin was amazed at what he saw. A few minutes later, he saw that half of the herbs had already been piled up in the living room. He was overjoyed. "Thank you for all your hard work. Later on, bring your guys over to the Whistler Hotel for dinner. My treat." "Thank you, Kevin." Kevin didn't say anything. He was focused on all the medicinal herbs filling his living room. Marshall understood Kevin's preoccupation, and he very tactfully said goodbye and headed for the elevator. Ignoring his injuries, Kevin let out a whoop and rushed over to look through the bags. He picked out all the ingredients for the first pill that he planned to make. At the same time that Kevin was turning his apartment into a New Age medical lab, Lily was broadcasting a live show. Ever since she started doing live broadcasts, she'd taken on a beautiful glow. She also attracted tons of fans who sent her donations or bought memberships. As soon as Lily started her show, a fan with the username Immortal Sword Inheritor sent her a series of donations for her account. "Thank you, Immortal Sword Inheritor," Lily immediately replied to express her gratitude. But then the Legend of the Sword posted a comment. "Goddess, why don't you do a dance?" "I'm sorry, I never learned to dance," Lily replied shyly. She'd never even been to a nightclub, let alone gone dancing. This immediately ticked off Immortal Sword Inheritor, who replied, "Is this your first live stream? Don't you know I've donated more than anyone else? You need to do what I say." As soon as this comment was posted, Lily's feed was flooded with requests for her to dance. She knew that if she disappointed her fans, they might stop sending her donations, which she really needed now that her income had dropped so much. Lily began to stand up from her chair, but just as she was about to dance, someone using the handle Mighty Moose donated $50,000. When this happened, everyone started commenting, telling her she had an admirer and she had to do whatever Mighty Moose wanted. Lily was speechless for a second and got very excited at all the activity in her comments. She'd been live streaming for a while now and nobody had ever donated more than a couple $1,000s. Then Mighty Moose posted a comment saying, "Now that I'm the high tipper, I have a request. Just talk for a while. Don't bother doing anything else." This immediately shut down Immortal Sword Inheritor and everyone else. Nobody could afford to compete with Mighty Moose. "Thank you, Mighty." But before Lily could finish speaking, she saw that her fan had already left. Meanwhile, Kevin was at his apartment in Corwin Tower putting ingredients into a medicinal cauldron that he'd had delivered. As long as he was going to dive into this, he wanted to do it right instead of just improvising with casseroles and pressure cookers from his kitchen. Based on the instructions in his books, he set the flame and started to refine his pill. But after about a half an hour, the cauldron began to bubble. At the same time, a rich medicinal fragrance wafted out of it. Suddenly, there was a flash of lightning from the storm outside. Since Kevin was at the highest point of one of the tallest buildings in Chicago, he could see the city's skyline light up. Then the lights flickered for a moment as the power grid compensated for the lightning strike. Kevin looked towards the living room and saw a figure standing there. He wondered if the elevator had malfunctioned from the power surge because this was supposed to be a private entrance. But the man who was wearing a black suit, high collar, and bow tie spoke to him like he knew him. "Ignorant youth, how can you risk refining such a powerful pill in a place like this? You have no idea what you're doing. How did you get in here?" But the man ignored him and walked straight toward the bubbling cauldron that Kevin had set up in his kitchen. Kevin wasn't sure what to do about this intruder, but he followed him anyway. Just then, another bolt of lightning flashed outside the window, followed almost immediately by a thunderclap. The steam above the bronze cauldron seemed to glow in the dim light. "Pill refinement should be taken very seriously," the man said in a gravelly voice. "Especially with what some call the heaven and earth pill." The old man stood there and continued to lecture Kevin. You're fortunate to be so close to the lightning. That will help the process. Who are you? His eyes were fixed on the old man. Only now did he realize that the man had put on a dark apron over his suit. He also felt a very powerful and confident presence from him, more than anyone he could remember meeting, even the most skilled martial artists. But the man didn't answer Kevin's question. Instead, he ignored it and asked one of his own. It's been many years since I've seen an apothecary with as much potential as you. Young man, where did you find the formula for this medicinal pill? Are you an apothecary too? Kevin asked him in astonishment. He hadn't thought of using the term to describe himself, but it made sense considering how he was so interested in preparing the medicines, not just taking them. But he was also very wary. This could just be someone who wanted to steal his pill, which could be worth a fortune at auction. Suddenly, there was another bolt of lightning. It made the whole apartment shake, and when Kevin looked at the cauldron, the green glow became brighter and brighter. After the steam dissipated and the glow faded, Kevin looked into the cauldron and saw a green pill. The man took it in his hand and asked him, "Young man, who is your mentor?" "I don't have a mentor," Kevin replied, slightly irritated. "Please return the pill to me." Upon hearing this, the old man smiled. "Young man, do you realize that if it wasn't for me, this building would have been destroyed? Is that how you show your thanks?" "Well, it's not like I asked you to help me. Besides, I never invited you in. I should have you charged with trespassing," Kevin answered. "You've got a sharp tongue. It's been a long time since anyone talked to me like that." He didn't seem angry at all. Instead, he looked like he might break out in laughter. "That's not all I have to say," Kevin said as he put his hands on his hips. The old man suddenly stepped right in front of Kevin and looked him deeply in his eyes. "I see that you have some talent. Why don't you take me as your mentor?" "Are you kidding?" Kevin said with disdain. "First, you steal my pill, and now you want to be my mentor. Why would I do that?" "You—" The old man was about to say something when he suddenly frowned. "They're here already? Do as I say and you might survive. Then you can decide if you want me as your mentor," the old man said as he put his hand on Kevin's shoulder. Kevin felt faint and sat down on the sofa. Maybe he hadn't recovered from his blood loss yet. Moments later, he saw 7 or 8 figures appear on the veranda. They were all dressed differently, like they were wearing Halloween costumes. "What's that fragrance? A pill?" a middle-aged man in a long brown cloak asked as he sniffed the air. "I didn't know there were any apothecaries in Chicago," said a woman who was dressed in a white kimono. "It looks like he's gone," a muscular man with a greedy look in his eye said to his companions. "That must be some pill." Another man who looked like he was dressed for a Renaissance fair said dejectedly, "I thought I'd be able to meet a master apothecary, but it looks like I came here for nothing." They all left in disappointment. Then 2 more figures suddenly appeared on the veranda. Kevin frowned and asked, "Who are they?" "Don't make a sound," the old man replied as he immediately covered Kevin's mouth. Kevin watched as the 2 figures looked around the balcony. They seemed to disappear and reappear as the lightning flashed. The storm finally moved off over the lake and they disappeared again. Kevin felt a little better and wondered if he'd just been dreaming. Who were those people? Were they really here? He asked. The old man replied haughtily, "Some people regard them as powerful leaders, but to me they're just a bunch of clowns." Kevin finally snapped out of it and asked, "Now will you give me back my pill?" "Is that all you can think of? If it wasn't for me, those people would have found you just like I did. Do you think that the delivery of such an enormous quantity of herbal ingredients would go unnoticed? Do you still want your pill?" the old man lamented. "Just return it to me or I'll call the police." The old man casually tossed the pill to Kevin. "I've returned your pill to you, but isn't there something you should return to me?" "What would that be?" Kevin had just asked this question when he saw the old man staring at his ring. He immediately realized who he was. "You're the Night King, from the Alliance?" "I'm glad you know who I am. So tell me, do you think I'm qualified to be your mentor now?" Kevin frowned. He didn't know what kind of person the Night King was, but he knew the man was powerful, and he knew how fearful Marshall was of him. After thinking for a moment, Kevin took off his ring and said, "You can have it. It's just a ring." The old man was stunned. He didn't know how to react. He'd expected Kevin to be afraid of him and start begging him for mercy. Who would have thought that he would simply return the ring? "You really don't know who you're dealing with, do you?" the Night King said angrily as he glared at Kevin. Kevin smiled when he saw him act like this. Then he very politely asked, "Will you please be my mentor?" Kevin wasn't a fool. He knew how important it was to have guidance, especially someone as strong as the Night King. Now he could make some progress. "That's more like it. I wish you'd said something earlier. You've got to do something about your attitude." Then he pulled a dagger out from his jacket and said, "But I don't have time to argue. Consider this a gift from mentor to pupil." "Is that the Night Dagger?" Kevin asked in shock. "You know about it," the Night King said with a hint of surprise in his voice. "I read about it in a novel." He wasn't ready to tell him that he'd read about it in the book that he'd taken from Marshall's office. It was said that the dagger didn't need to be wiped after it was stained with blood. It had been forged in a way that kept any liquids from sticking to its surface. As the Night King handed the knife to Kevin, he told him, "This dagger has been with me for many years. Guard it with your life." Kevin nodded as he looked wide-eyed at it. The handle fit his palm comfortably. There was a small pommel to keep it from slipping out of his grip. He noticed that it felt very cold against his skin. "Since I've passed it to you, it's like the dagger recognizes you as its master. Take care of it." Then the Night King said solemnly, "As your training progresses, I hope that you can strive to take my place one day." "Thank you," Kevin said very respectfully. "Now take the pill that you just made. I'll stay with you in case there are any unwelcome side effects," the old man said as he walked back to the living room. For the next 2 weeks, the Night King stayed in Kevin's apartment, teaching him arcane skills and passing on his knowledge. Kevin made rapid progress. Finally, one day as they were sitting in the living room, the Night King got up from the sofa saying, "That's all we can do for now. The rest will come to you as you practice. There are some matters that I've neglected for a while." "How can I contact you?" He hadn't known him for a long time, but Kevin felt a connection and mutual concern. "There's no need to contact me. I'll come find you as I did this time. For now, just keep practicing," the Night King replied as he patted Kevin on the shoulder and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed and Kevin was alone again, his phone suddenly rang. "Miss Wilson, what's the matter?" "Sir, there's going to be a banquet in Chicago tonight. Williams Media is expected to be represented along with the city's other business leaders. Do you have time to go there?" she asked cheerfully. "It doesn't sound like I need to be there. You always do a fine job representing the company." He really just wanted to stay in his apartment and work on everything the Night King had taught him. "It wouldn't be right for you to skip this event. A lot of people still don't know who you are. If you showed up for the banquet, it would cause a lot of excitement, and we could use the opportunity to publicize Brittany and our new client, Charity Boyer," Miss Wilson advised him gently. Kevin realized his new vocation would have to wait a little bit. Maybe it would be good to take a small break.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.